Oh, you know what time it is. It is time for Early Edge Live, and I am fired up. I am the coach. This is the Early Edge, your daily sports betting brand of record. We are powered, as always, by the almighty SportsLine, the best value in all sports betting, and it's not close. Now, if you watch the morning show, then you know that this World Cup game going on right now was going to be fire, and Martin W. Green nailed it. 2-1 at halftime, Croatia. My goodness, it's been great so far. So that's that football. But worried about this football, Week 12, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, really when everybody starts to look forward to the playoffs, positioning, getting there, playing well, getting healthy, injuries, all of that. But you need a crew to help you navigate all of these 7 o'clock, 1 o'clock games, 7 1 o'clock games, 4 o'clock games, and, of course, Sunday Night Football, the Packers and the Eagles. So look who I have. It's not the only one, but had a little technical difficulties, I'm assuming. But if there was an hour and this man was put in front of a camera, I am quite sure that he could fill it. Prop Stars, this is your world, baby. I'm just living in it. What's up?
What's up, Coach? Good to see you. Sunday morning in parts unknown, Sunday afternoon elsewhere in the Early Edge universe. I am so excited. If it was look who it is. Cousin Sia decided to join us briefly and then dipped out. Hopefully he's back. Sia, great to see you. Coach, great to see you. Me and Sia sorely missed you on Friday on the prop extravaganza. We held it down. Also, Uncle Dave was missing as well. So, yeah, I'm just excited to see you. Excited to chop this up. I love this slate today as well.
You know it. And I tell people all the time, holidays people have to miss. We know Mama Coach, Papa Coach are visiting. By the way, there will be a Mama Coach and Mama Buckets parlay on Monday. That's a little tease. But we didn't miss a show. We didn't miss a day because of crew members like Sia Najah, the most handsomest man in all of the Early Edge universe. Little tech issues, but I think we are good now. Are you ready for the slate today, Sia?
Yeah, I think we're good, barring any internet issues. But yeah, I'm excited about this slate as well. I was excited to do the Friday prop show. These are exciting times. Unfortunately, we're kind of on the back end, the back nine of the football season. So let's get the most out of each and every week that we possibly can.
You're damn right. I like it. Let's get into it now. For those of you who watch the show every single week, you know the drill. If you have a play that you like, try to wait until we get to the game because we're going through every single one. Put it in the chat. Add the juice for me because my guys really, really need that. And then we'll try to answer as many as we can and get to as much as we can. But we go through every single game, best bets, and props. So let's get started, gentlemen. If you don't mind, we got a lot to get to. So game number one. This is a good one. Bengals, they scored 37 last week, covered against the Steelers. Titans, they haven't played for 10 days, and we know what the Titans are like with Mike Vrabel at the helm when they have extended rest. So right now it's basically a pick 'em. Bengals -1, total 42.5. And the man who's behind the curtain, also in the chat, also producing, AB, he's on the Titans team total over 20.5. Sia, let's start with you. As far as a side is concerned, how do you not go with Tennessee that no matter who the quarterback has been this year, they're in every single game?
Yeah, so we've talked about this, and I've referred this entire season, I've been referring to the Tennessee Titans as the Rodney Dangerfield of the NFL teams, which I understand only like 5% of our population understands that reference. But what I'm trying to say is that the Tennessee Titans are constantly disrespected, and it's because they don't have the flash and the pop like teams like Cincinnati Bengals, for example, that they do with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow. What they have is Derrick Henry. They have a very good coach. They have a very good rush defense. Yeah, they're compromised on the back end, but we saw what that meant to the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, they held the Kansas City Chiefs in check, and they had them sitting on 9 points with about 3 or 4 minutes left in that game. So this is a team that can manufacture ways to defend against the pass. They're at home. They keep winning ball games. They're clearly the class of their division. And I think they're going to win this game. That's why the line has gone down from, I think it opened at Bengals -2. It's down to -1. Frankly, this line should probably be Titans -1. I like the Titans here.
And see, if that is the game script and Titans are going to be playing from ahead, then Alex, the Bengals are going to be throwing, which is exactly what they want to do anyway. First chat question. Higgins over 78.5 receiving yards. Don't have the juice.
Yeah, I'd lean over on Higgins. I think Jamar Chase was tentatively expected to play all week and then ultimately ended up getting ruled out. It's tough because when Jamar Chase is on the field, he is such a dynamic presence, and the opposing teams respect him so much that he takes so much attention away from T. Higgins that he leaves T. Higgins in a bunch of advantageous matchups and he can win versus T. Higgins having to face a lot more double teams without Jamar Chase. So from an efficiency standpoint, you want Jamar Chase on the field, but obviously without Jamar Chase, T. Higgins is going to receive more volume. So I'd lean over on T. Higgins in this matchup. This is obviously a good matchup against the Tennessee Titans team. They give up, I believe, as many yards to opposing wide receivers as any defense in the NFL this season. I just wanted to touch on one thing, Coach, that interests me in this game is that the total. Obviously, I don't spend barely any time as far as sides and totals are concerned, but I thought around 42 points was low considering this matchup. We have a Bengals defense that is a much better secondary than they are rush defense, so I really think that kind of lends a lot of it's an advantage for Derrick Henry and the Titans offense. And then as far as the Titans are concerned, they're a much more generous pass defense versus rush defense. We know what the Bengals like to do, especially without Joe Mixon today in the Bengals backfield. We're going to see Joe Burrow throw a lot. I really thought this total was actually quite low, and I personally made a play over 42 points total. So that's one spot that I looked at pretty closely.
Yeah, I also looked at Samaje Perine, his under with his combo yards, too. I thought that looked like a good one, too. Just something I picked out when I was in my lab. Let me come back to you, Sia. Joe Burrow last week threw 355 yards. We know this Titans defense is better than the Steelers defense, but his number, chat question, over 276.5, and his attempts 37.5, I think will come into play today.
Yeah, that's such an interesting number. I lean to the over on both of those. I think the worry and the reason I wouldn't be betting it personally is because I do think we could see a lot of just chewing up the clock with an efficient Ryan Tannehill and an efficient Derrick Henry. So for me, I think it's going to be a lot of keep away from the as far as the Tennessee Titans are concerned. So I'd probably lay off that number, but it's hard to resist even without Jamar Chase. I could see him opening it up to guys like Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, of course, Hayden Hurst. There's a lot still left in the arsenal, but for me, it's a stay away.
All right, let's go back to you, Alex, because we've talked about it for a few weeks. We said, when will the Derrick Henry number get to triple digits? That day has arrived, 100.5. Talk to me.
Yeah, this is just a good matchup for him. As I mentioned earlier, if we're looking at this Bengals defense, they're much weaker against the run versus the pass. Furthermore, I just think Ryan Tannehill's looked good over the last few weeks, which kind of opens things up. Getting Treylon Burks back for Tennessee's offense. He's a very dynamic, explosive playmaker, and certainly it's just tough to stack the box when you have a guy like Treylon Burks for the Titans. So I think this is a spot where you can potentially play Henry if you like him. I typically also stay away from props this big when we're looking at triple digit rushing yards. Just I always talk about there's a lot more ways for a play to go under than over, but to me it's either an over or I just stay away. But I do expect a massive amount of volume for Derrick Henry, probably between 22 up to 27 rushing attempts if the Titans are able to play with the lead for the majority of the game. So I'd lean over or stay away.
John in the chat just goes, oh, there's a furthermore. You better play it. You better play it. I love that, Johnny. I love when you do that. And you know it. When my man speaks faster and says furthermore, you better bang that prop right then and there. All right, game number 2, everybody. We're off and rolling. I love this day. I feel so good about the weekend that we're having, but today is going to be a big day. Now, speaking of feeling good about, see, I'm going to come to you. The Bucs starting to play a little bit better. They had that dynamic late game win against the Rams, and last week played much better using the ground game for their success. Now, they're laying 3 in Cleveland today, total 42. The Maestro is on the Bucs -3. I played the Bucs money line at around -150. I didn't want to deal with the points. How are you seeing this game?
Well, I love for Tampa Bay, I love the fact that they're coming off a bye. I think this is a really good spot for them, and it's a really good spot for them in terms of facing the Cleveland defense. With all that said, I mean, this line was 3.5 for a majority of the week, and I really liked the Browns at that number at +3.5. You're getting the key number, plus you're getting the hook. At -3, it's a stay away for me. I mean, my lean actually would probably be toward the Browns. But I understand, especially if you can get the Bucs -3, or like you said, Coach, money line, or if you can get the Bucs -2.5, I like it again. We see some flashes of the Bucs playing better, but it still might be a bad team. Like, this is not the Bucs of last year, period. And we know Leonard Fournette is out. Rachaad White, who is going to be a very, very fancy and popular DFS play, is going to be playing in this game. So I like the Bucs as a whole. I don't think I'm going to be betting them -3, but I think if it's 3.5, which it might be still in some places, especially with the weather, there's going to be some rain, there's going to be some wind. I think that suits the Browns way more than it suits the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if it's 3.5, I like the Browns. If it's 3, it's a stay away. 2.5, I don't mind taking the Bucs there.
I think we're close to getting there because the money line just moved up to -175, which means you're probably going to get that 3.5 because the money line will never be -200, -220. So we'll see if that happens. But let me come to you, Alex, because Nick Chubb, if the Browns are going to keep this close, they've got to shorten the game and they've got to chew up clock, which leads to him. Do we like his number? I believe the last time I looked, it was 74.5.
Yeah, it's some fluctuating between 72.5, 74.5, Coach. I do like the spot for Nick Chubb. We're getting a discount here based on his previous 2 performances, kind of game scripted out of the game last week. I think against this Bucs team, Cleveland can be competitive. I think they're going to really try to establish Nick Chubb early. Furthermore, when we're dissecting this Tampa Bay Bucs defense, they are a lot softer up front than in the back end, which is not normally what we're used to seeing with this Bucs defense. Normally, they're one of the more stout run defenses in the NFL. Not the case this season. So Nick Chubb can absolutely get going against the Bucs. I also expect Cleveland to prioritize him. On the other side, I'm very fascinated to see how the Bucs choose to attack the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are one of the biggest run funnels in the NFL. They are porous run defense. And as we know, the Bucs are one of the more pass-heavy teams in the NFL. They do not run the football very much at all. They kind of rely on the short area passing game as an extension of their run game. No Leonard Fournette today, so it's going to be the rookie Rachaad White show. He has been mostly ineffective this season, kind of showed some flashes last week, but will be very interesting to see if they decide to implement more of a balanced attack against Cleveland, because teams, when they face Cleveland, are choosing to go very run heavy. I'm just not sure if these Buccaneers are really built to do that. Also, another interesting component to pay attention to is the Browns give up the fewest yards and receptions to opposing slot receivers. Pay attention to Chris Godwin in this matchup. It's going to be a difficult matchup, more than it looks at first glance for him.
And right now, his catch total is 6.5, and his yardage total is 61.5 for Godwin. On the other side, see, we have Mike Evans' chat question, 61.5 for him. But also, I wanted to ask you about Tom Brady, because in a game like this, I feel like we're going to lean to the under, especially if we go off what they did in Germany with the run game. Do you feel the same way?
I totally feel the same way. And to Alex's point, I think that should really be the game script. We know how much they like to pass the ball, and I get it. But given these conditions and given this matchup, I really think it's going to be a lot of Rachaad White, a lot of short area passing. I think Chris Godwin is a great play. I would probably stay away from Mike Evans for the reasons we already set out. But yeah, I actually like the running game in this game more than anything for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
All right, right now Tom Brady's at 261.5, and I just played it live to the under. It's going to be a fast game. I think he's going to get around 180, 190, something like that. But play that under. I think you're going to get a ton of value based off the information you just heard from my guys. Keep that chat popping. We also need you to hit that like button for me, because we're starting to really, really grow, and it helps new people find the show on Apple or Spotify or on YouTube as well. All right, game number 3. And this one's very interesting, guys, because this is a team that's really rolling, but they're coming off a bye week. Is it going to help them or hurt them? The thing that helps Sia is that they're playing the Houston Texans. And, of course, I'm talking about the Miami Dolphins. This number has just continued to rise and rise and rise. It's all the way up to 14 now, that, as we know in the NFL, no matter who you're playing, that's a very difficult ask. The total sitting at 47. The Maestro was on the Dolphins when it was 12. Do you still like them at 14?
Yeah, well, I don't think I like them at 14. I do think I like them at 12. The thing about this game that is just, there's such an unknown, is the Kyle Allen factor. And this is why I actually have a play in this game on Nico Collins, because, and this is a new play, by the way, for everybody, I actually have Nico Collins over 42.5 receiving yards at -115. And the reason for that is because I do think Kyle Allen, while he can be turnover prone and he might sort of unleash it a little bit more than Davis Mills, which could lead to some opportunities for the Miami defense, I do think he's a net positive to the receivers. Now, those receivers are Nico Collins, of course, Brandon Cooks, Chris Moore. They're all likely to get a few more looks and a few more looks downfield as a result of Kyle Allen being the quarterback who we know has experience with Washington, has extensive experience with Carolina, only 26 years old, has something to prove in this league for sure. And I think, again, he's going to be a net positive for this offense. Now, is he going to turn the ball over? Yeah. Does he have a really strong arm? No. So, I mean, those are things that, like, would placate the Miami bettors, the Miami -14 or the Miami -12 bettors. But at -14, I don't like it because I do think Kyle Allen has the potential to maybe not turn the ball over and definitely move the ball down the field. As far as Nico Collins is concerned, his last 5 games here are his yardage totals: 48, 49, 33, 65, and 82. For the record, that 33 blip on the radar, that was a game where he injured his groin. He caught 3 of 3 passes and only 33 yards. He's led the team in targets 2 weeks in a row. He has been a relative target monster for the last, 5-6 weeks. I mean, Brandon Cooks has kind of taken a back seat there. And again, I think Kyle Allen is a net positive. For the record, Kyle Allen's passing prop is 223.5 yards. It's not embarrassingly low by any means. And given that the concentration of targets is likely to go to Nico and Brandon Cooks with a smattering of Chris Moore, I think a lot of that gets poured into Nico Collins. So if you're going to break down his passing yardage prop and you're going to tell me he only has 42.5 yards that he needs to have receiving, I'm talking Nico Collins and then Kyle Allen, I think he exceeds that. I think we're looking at 55, 65, maybe 70 yards for Nico.
Okay, very good. Now, I just got that number at my book at 41.5, so it's still very much alive, and that's even better than what you just gave out. A lot of names to get to, so let's keep it tight here. Let me come to you, Alex, because Jeff Wilson, he came over last time, and you nailed his. He sailed to the over the last game. Do you like Jeff Wilson today?
Love Jeff Wilson today. No Raheem Mostert in the backfield. It's going to be the Jeff Wilson show going against the Texans defense that ranks 32nd in rushing DVOA, 31st in EPA allowed per rush. Fantastic matchup. Only really have to worry about the Dolphins getting up by double digits early into the game, and then potentially Wilson not playing many snaps in the fourth quarter, but he should sail over this number. I also bet on him to score not 1, but 2 touchdowns around plus 250, plus 300. I think that's a nice value as well. So love me some Jeff Wilson today.
Yeah, Ashley in the chat said Jeff Wilson, 2+ touchdowns, plus 235. It's like he's Nostradamus. He knows you're going to ask the question. Sia, let me come back to you because we got 2 studs for Miami. And when they play a defense like the Texans, it should be open season. Let's start with Cheetah, over 94.5 for Tyreek Hill, who for the first time the last game got kind of kept in check and everybody else went off. Do you like him today?
That's probably a little too high for me. I mean, I do kind of like Tyreek Hill. I would probably defer to the Jalen Waddle prop, which last I checked, I think was in the 67, 66.5, 67.5 range. When it's that much of a bridge between Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I think I would probably just defer to Jalen Waddle there. I think this is a really interesting spot, though, because everybody does love Jeff Wilson. And for the record, I was waiting, and I know props was too. I was waiting for the Jeff Wilson props to come out for our prop show at 4 o'clock on Friday, and it just wasn't out among other props that I was waiting for. So that's just one of those things. I just have to endorse what Alex just said because I absolutely love Jeff Wilson this week. He's going to be very popular in DFS as well. And I will say people are going to be plugging him into a lot of lineups and DraftKings at 5,900. A sneaky way to look at this game is maybe you take Jeff Wilson out of it and you play Tua with Tyreek Hill or Tua with Jalen Waddle or both. And you could even mix Jeff Wilson in there depending on how you construct. But I think Tua could absolutely go off. I think he's getting overlooked in this game. And I think if Kyle Allen can push the Dolphins even just a little bit, let's remember the Dolphins implied total as we speak is over 30 points. It's extremely high. So this could be a great game for Tyreek, a great game for Waddle and Tua, and of course Jeff Wilson as well. Miami should go off.
And Tua's number is 278.5 right now, minus 115. I like that. He's a lot like Patrick Mahomes these days. That 300 is kind of the benchmark for him lately, and he doesn't go below it very often. Gentlemen, thank you very much. That's only game number 3. You get all this information, and it's only game number 3. So, Alex, I'm starting with you this game. We're going to go to a game that I guarantee you very few people are going to be watching. But when other people's go, oh, it's yuck, that's not an opportunity. But for us, it's a
opportunity, Coach.
You're damn right it is. So let's go Bears and Jets. Jets, it's all the way up to 7 now because Justin Fields, his legs have been dynamic. Unfortunately, it's his shoulder that is now separated. He is out today for the Bears, and he's been the entire offense. So one play as a brand on this game. RJ gave the Jets out when they were minus 4.5, and he told you, get it in then because it would go up, and he was absolutely right. From a prop standpoint, Alex, do you see anything in this game, overs or unders, that we can play?
Coach, not since Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier have I been more excited for a heavyweight duel between Mike White and Trevor Siemian today. Cannot wait. Must see. Actually just shocked at the Jets being 7-point favorites with Mike White at quarterback. This is a very fascinating matchup. As you mentioned, although this game might not be the most pleasant one to watch, certainly a lot of opportunities. I'm looking at both quarterbacks, and I'm looking at what their quarterback tendencies are. Both of these quarterbacks love to incorporate the short area passing, and they love to check down to their running backs and tight ends. Michael Carter being a beneficiary of Mike White. If you look at Mike White, all the starts he's made, he peppers Michael Carter with targets. I also believe James Robinson is going to be inactive in this game, so I anticipate a lot of short area passing. I think Michael Carter's props, 2.5 receptions, are very much in play. On the other side, Trevor Siemian, very similar to Mike White. These guys do not throw the ball down the field. They take what the defense gives them, and they check down to their running
Alex,
backs.
let me interrupt you real quick because they're telling me in the chat that Siemian got hurt in warmups, and he's out today. If that's several people are saying that. So if that's the case, this gets even worse. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that's I didn't know that. So yeah, interested to see. So I was looking at David Montgomery props, particularly his receiving props, because I did anticipate Trevor Siemian peppering him with targets. So yeah, certainly probably won't see any props with this development as far as Bears props are concerned.
That's very interesting. Nathan Peterman, welcome to the show. How do you get hurt in warmups? Somebody, if anybody knows, type it into the chat. I just want to know how you get an opportunity to start and you get hurt in warmups.
He hurt his oblique. He hurt his oblique, apparently.
I guess when you're on the bench so long, you probably get really stiff and you probably didn't stretch enough, you know? It's like climbing right out of bed and just kind of getting up there past 30 and...
At least they're playing on a great surface there at the Meadowlands. It's always been fantastic. Players rave about how cushiony that field truly is. See, unless you have something on this game, I'd just like to move on to the next one. Are you good? Good?
I'm good. I think we should move on 100%.
Yeah.
Let's spend another 20 minutes on this game, Coach.
Well, the reason Sia wants to move on is because he knows his team is playing next. And his team is arguably the hottest team in football right now because the Commanders are shocking the world. And now you've got a quarterback, Sia. Taylor Heineke, he is cemented as the starter. I think that's a big deal. So they're laying 4 today. The total is around 40.5. That's kind of what I'm leaning into, to be honest. Taking on the Falcons. My man AB is on the Commanders to score over 2.5 touchdowns. That's plus 105. I mean, just any 3. Passing, rushing, doesn't matter. Sia, I know you like a play in this game. We'll start with you.
Yeah, I like Antonio Gibson over 71.5 rushing and receiving yards at minus 114. I mean, if you've been trailing me, you know that I'm not exactly big on Brian Robinson. It was probably 4 or 5 weeks ago where I had a Brian Robinson under given out, and it didn't even come close to. I mean, obviously it came in, but it didn't even threaten. It wasn't a sweat at all, and that's because Brian Robinson's been so inefficient. Since that time, we've started to see Antonio Gibson's snap share creep up and creep up and creep up. And last week, it was around 66, 67%. So his snap share is increasing. His rushing attempts are increasing. And J.D. McKissick, their pass-catching running back, is on injured reserve. So Antonio Gibson, not Brian Robinson, is assuming that role. So that's why I like the rushing and receiving prop here of over 71.5. This is a very soft Atlanta defense. And as good as Taylor Heineke is, I don't think the game plan is, hey, Taylor, go out and just chuck the ball around all 4 quarters and let's see what happens. The game plan is run with Brian Robinson. The game plan is run with Antonio Gibson. And when you're in that 2-minute offense and when you're in 3rd and long, you chuck it to Terry McLaurin or you check it down to Antonio Gibson. I think we're going to see a lot of that. And eventually, I think we're going to see Antonio Gibson eclipse to 71.5 rushing and receiving yard total.
Chill Will in the chat wants to know, so you'd stay away from the 52.5 rushing prop alone?
Yeah, I just, yeah, exactly. I would. I think that's okay. But I would prefer the rushing and receiving. Again, with J.D. McKissick out, we're going to see Antonio Gibson get some looks here. I could absolutely see him getting 3 to 4 pass catches. And if that happens, one of those he could spring and really, really kind of tear into the 71.5 total.
You've been really good at nailing these because the combo props have really been cashing for us lately because of a lot of the information that you're telling us. Alex, let me come to you. You've been dynamic on the anytime touchdown props this year. Chat question, Terry McLaurin against this particular Falcons defense. They have been gouged this entire year. The overs have kind of been the play in many of these Falcons games. Is this a good matchup for McLaurin to find the end zone?
It is, from the standpoint that he will be able to likely have his way against an overmatched Atlanta secondary. My issue with the matchup, however, is can Atlanta push the Commanders enough for them to have an uptick in passing volume? I'm not quite sure they can. Also, as far as the Falcons are concerned, they're going to run the football a lot. They're going to bleed a lot of clock. They have very long drives. The Commanders also do a lot of the same things where they run a lot. So I just don't think this is the right game environment for a potential spike week from Terry McLaurin, despite it being a very good matchup against this Falcons secondary. If you were to tell me that the Falcons were going to push them and, cause the Commanders to throw, then I would be all over Terry McLaurin here. But I just don't have a lot of faith in the game environment, which was really what I look at here, kind of projecting potential big games, spike weeks, ceiling weeks, etc. So staying away from McLaurin.
Chat question, Cordarrelle Patterson, his rushing number is over 46.5, minus 113. Thoughts?
Like it, don't love it. This Commanders front is very stout. We've seen inconsistent usage with Cordarrelle Patterson all season, so I'm staying away despite it being an attractive number. I just don't have the confidence for them to give him 15-plus carries. They just haven't wanted to overwork him, so staying away from Patterson.
See you. Back to you quickly. Chat question, Taylor Heineke. We just talked about it. 2 weeks ago, his number was 215, and it came in at 211. It was tight, but probably cashed it. Do you like Heineke today? Nobody knows his team better than you.
Yeah, I like him, but to Alex's point, I don't think he's necessarily going to get pushed. Listen, Atlanta's a very scrappy team, but I think both of these teams keep it close to the vest this week. We know Atlanta doesn't like to throw anyway. They're also down Kyle Pitts. I think they're just going to try to establish the run with Tyler Algier, with some Cordarrelle Patterson, maybe with some Caleb Huntley. And then on the other side, we're going to see a lot of Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. Unless this game somehow gets away from Washington at home, which I just don't think that's going to happen, then I think that's when you sort of unleash Taylor Heineke. But in this particular case, as a 4-point favorite, I don't think you're going to see a ton from Taylor Heineke.
Okay, very, very good. All right, that is game number 5. We are crossing the bottom of the hour. It's about 12:30 on the East Coast, and we still have 6 games to get to, so we've got to pick up the pace, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this next game. Broncos, Panthers. Really? This was basically a pick 'em. If you would have told me 2 months ago that the Denver Broncos and the Fighting Russell Wilson would be a pick 'em in Carolina against who's the starting quarterback for the Sam? Don't even know who this guy is. So here's where we stand as a brand. AB is on the Broncos team total over 18.5, and I believe that's come down in a lot of books to 17.5 or 18. RJ was on the Panthers when it was a 2.5. That's long gone, and the Steelers 8.5. That's why you got to watch the Tuesday show. But you have a best bet, in this game. Talk to me.
Yeah, by the way, I mean, when it comes to Sam Darnold, I feel like even when he was at USC, people were touting him as like, dang, this guy's going to be number one. And I'm sitting there, because I bet on college football. I'm watching these games. I'm watching a lot of USC late night on Saturday. And I'm thinking, I don't see it. This guy looks turnover prone.
Right.
The arm doesn't seem very strong. I don't know what's going on here. And here we are many years later, and it's coming to fruition. But here's my bet. Sorry for the digression. It's Latavius Murray's longest rush under 14.5 yards. I know that's kind of an obscure bet, but I like to dip my toe in these types of bets, and I've won more often than not. Again, Latavius Murray, longest rush under 14.5 at minus 110. Listen, Latavius is going to get the volume here. There's just no question about that. There's also no question that the Carolina Panthers allow a lot in the rushing game. They allow around 4.7 yards per carry, but this defense is getting healthier, and Latavius hasn't rushed for over 14 yards this entire season. And you might be saying, well, he also hasn't had the number one role this entire season. Well, that's true, except for the fact that he's gotten double-digit carries plenty of times, 17, 14, and 15 carries, yet to go over 14 yards. This guy's 32 years old. There's not a lot of threats on the outside, especially with Russell Wilson at the quarterback and no Jerry Jeudy, probably no KJ Hamler. You're just not looking at a lot of threats. So you're going to see boxes that are, not necessarily stacked, but Latavius Murray is going to have to rush for 15 yards. He hasn't done it all season, and the passing game isn't a super huge threat here. And I'm being kind when I say not a super huge threat. I just don't see Latavius Murray. He might get his yardage. He might get his prop and his yardage, which last I checked, I think it was 65.5. But I don't think he's going to have any huge chunk plays. And I'm going to have him over under 14.5 rushing yards as his longest rush.
And somebody might have something to say about, though, and I'm coming to Proppy in a second, but this is why I love the chat so much. You guys know I'm hosting a show. You know we're invested in Croatia. And you tell me right away, goal number 3, that Canada coach, can't hear him anymore. The guru told you today Croatia would be motivated. And look at that. 3-1, 71 minutes. That's what it's all about. That's why we're together as a team, as a family, as a universe, as a crew. Now, just because we're together as a crew, Alex, you just heard your cousin Sia say that he could get his prop. He could get his number. But you don't think he will, do you?
I don't, but I don't have an official play on Latavius Murray.
Oh, no, but it's around 78. But I think you don't think he's going to get his yards. I'm not saying you have an official play.
Okay, yeah. I don't particularly like Latavius Murray in this matchup. I do think listen, when we're looking at Latavius Murray, there is just not a lot to like. As Sia mentioned, 32, that is ancient in the NFL. Just doesn't appear to be very much explosion left in him. Furthermore, this Broncos team just struggles both running the football and throwing the football. And I also think this Panthers defense is quietly underrated. We've seen them perform well at times throughout the season. As Sia mentioned, they are also getting healthier and healthier. So while he might get an uptick in volume, I think there's going to be a downtick in efficiency. So there is a reason that Latavius Murray has played on like 6 teams in the past 3 years. I'd personally fade him. I actually like fading his combination line, which you can find at 78.5.
Boom. And that's where I was trying to get to. So thank you. I knew we'd get there, Alex. I knew we would get there. It's fine. Javon says, good morning. Teamwork makes the dream work, baby. Let's go. I agree, Javon. I agree. Next game, and it's the final 1 o'clock game today. Do not sleep, see you on Jacksonville when they've had 2 weeks off, and they're playing at home. We've seen them recently come back to beat the Raiders at home after being down by double digits. Now in comes to town, Lamar Jackson. Baltimore Ravens. This number sitting at 3.5, the total at 43. As a brand, the speculator, who's becoming a savage, by the way, Ravens, Jags, under 43.5. He likes the under here. And see, I know I said I was coming to you, but guess what? Proppy has 2 best bets in this game. So we got to get them out right here and right now, and then I will come to you. Alex, you're up.
Yeah, first up, we love Mark Andrews. I gave out Mark Andrews on the Friday show over 63.5 receiving yards. I believe this number has since jumped up between 67 and 69. I think it's playable at 67. I'd pass at 69. If you're wanting to be more aggressive, you could potentially scale down with your unit size. But listen, Mark Andrews is fully healthy, didn't appear on the injury report this week. Amongst all players that have run at least 100 routes, Andrews is 96th percentile in target rate, 97th percentile first read target rate, 98th percentile in target share. That is amongst all players, and that includes wide receivers. This guy profiles very similar, if you look at all of his advanced metrics, to an elite wide receiver, but he plays the tight end position, which is just very fascinating. 30% of his team's targets, 36% air yard share, first read on 23% of his routes, a very excellent 2.12 yards per route run. 67% of his routes are run from the slot as well. The Jaguars are the worst team in DVOA to opposing tight ends. They rank 28th in PFF's coverage grade, 19th in EPA allowed per dropback, 18th in dropback success percentage. This is just a fantastic matchup for a healthy Mark Andrews, who is obviously functioning as the number 1, number 2, number 3, number gazillion pass option for this Ravens pass attack. So this has every check for me as far as a potential spike week for Mark Andrews. Love this spot for him. Then on the other side of things, I love Travis Etienne over 92.5 rushing and receiving yards. Listen, this is just a matchup that Travis Etienne can win. He has been phenomenal this year since taking over as a starting running back after the Jaguars traded James Robinson. He's averaging a combined 120 rushing and receiving yards per game. He ranks in the top 10 in nearly every important running back metric: rush yards over expected, elusive rating, breakaway yards, success rate. He's also been very strong in the pass game as well, which is why I like this combination line, because they're able to utilize him in the short area game, in the screen game as well. Furthermore, if they're able to push the Jags or force the Jags to abandon the run or not run as much as they would like to, he can be utilized in the receiving game, which is why I prefer the combination line to his rushing line. I do lean over on his other props, but that is why I'm choosing to attack the combination line, because it gives you security when you look at the potential game scripts. And if the Jaguars are forced to throw the ball to keep up with the Ravens, they will still feature Travis Etienne in the passing game. So love his over 92.5 rushing plus receiving. I'd play it up to 94, 95.5.
I just got it at 91, so I got it better than the number you get. So it's still available there. And the reason I give those out is not to say that he didn't have the right numbers, to tell you when you can get him, because we know Proppy's numbers. We have people watching the show. They don't like to admit it, but they do, because he's the best prop better in America, and we've got him on our team at SportsLine and at the early edge. So, see, let me come to you, because you're amazing in so many different ways. And when we look at the number, the total, right now it's moving in the favor of the Jags. It's right now all the way down to 3.5 and 3 in some places. We had it on the Tuesday show, and it was like 4 or 4.5. I kind of like Jacksonville in this spot if it's at least 3.5. What about you?
Yeah, this is a problematic one for me to break down. I definitely like it at 3.5. I definitely like the Jaguars at 3. At 3, it'd probably be a stay away. I think we are overvaluing the Ravens a little bit. I mean, Mark Andrews is healthy, and that, he was healthy last week too, or last time they played as well. And so I think that's a big factor. And it looks like the receiver core, Rashad Bateman's not playing, but it looks like Duvernay and Demarcus Robinson are going to be in there. It looks like Gus Edwards is back. So they are getting healthier. So I understand the sentiment towards the Ravens, but I also think this is a team that's slightly overvalued. I'll be honest, this is definitely a stay away for me, but anything 3.5 or more seems like it would be value on the Jaguars side at home. So I do like the Jaguars. I just don't think I like them enough to bet it. I will say Mark Andrews, I think, is in an absolute smash spot. And in DFS, with not many tight ends to be playing, for those of you that are still making DFS lineups, which you very well could be, I think you got to have Mark Andrews in your tight end position. I think at 6,500 on DraftKings, that's a really important play, whether you're stacking him with Lamar Jackson. And you can afford Mark Andrews at 6,500 because there are so many value running backs that we've already talked about: Jeff Wilson, Rashad White, Latavius Murray, if you want to go there, Isaiah Pacheco, a lot of guys to consider. Antonio Gibson, too.
God, your information is next level. Absolutely next level. Let me come back to you, Alex. We got to make it fast. They're asking about Lamar Jackson on the ground. His number is 51.5, or excuse me, just went up to 53.5, around minus 117, and his passing prop is over 206.5.
I think the rushing line is fairly efficient, especially with Gus Edwards back in the backfield. Also, the Jaguars' run defense is fairly stout. It's the strength of their defense. I do think there is potentially a little bit of value with his passing yards over. I do think this is a matchup that they can take advantage of a Jacksonville secondary that's not that good and very much heavily feature Mark Andrews. I think this is a great spot for a potential ceiling game for him. So lean over on the passing. I think the rushing is efficient. Stay away.
And for those of you who are new to the brand, when he says ceiling game or a spike game, meaning he can kind of have a bigger game than what he's used to or what we're used to as we've been covering them every single week. All right, those are the 7 1 o'clock games. We're about 20 minutes from kick, so we're going to kind of almost go fast through these final 4 so people still have a chance to get in all of the best bets, and we'll do the best bets about 10 till, so anybody that came in late can still see them. You missed the information, but we still want you to feel like you are included, which you are. All right, now, Chargers, Cardinals. Chargers are laying 3 on the road. Arizona's become an absolute dumpster fire. Total 48.5. See, I'm coming to you because you have a best bet in this game.
Yeah, I have James Conner over 63.5 rushing yards at -114. I mentioned this on Friday. I'd play it up to 65.5 probably. That's where I'd stop. Conner's the guy in the backfield. So that's one thing to consider here. So Conner's relatively fresh because he missed a few games due to injury. And we know we kind of have to talk about that with James Conner because at this point in the season, it's not just Kyler Murray that usually sort of gasses out or is dealing with an injury, but James Conner is one of those guys too. Last week when I saw him run, I thought he looked very, very fresh. And with Eno Benjamin no longer on this roster, most of the carries, when I say most, I'm talking like 80 to 90% of the carries are going to go to James Conner this week against a Chargers defense that is allowing 5.7 yards per carry. For those of you that don't understand how bad that is, it is the worst in the league. So give me James Conner, the featured running back, in a huge way. And when I say huge way, meaning that he's really the only running back on that roster that's going to get significant carries against a terrible Chargers rush defense. 63.5 seems, I don't want to say it's a gift because at the end of the day, this is still James Conner and he's not a guy that's going to have a breakaway run, but he's going to have enough chunk runs, I think, to get over this total. I will say one of the things I was struggling with on Friday was whether to take this or the rushing attempts prop of 15.5. I liked them both, but I landed on 63.5 rushing yards because I think Conner will be able to get enough chunk plays at home. When I say chunk plays, I'm talking 10, 12, 14-yard gains. I think he's going to have 2 or 3 of those, and I think that's how he's really going to sail over this 63.5 rushing yard total.
Yeah, it's kind of what C is talking about also. There's nothing worse than like third quarter, he's got 50 yards, and you hear the announcer say, oh, James Conner's in the blue tent. You're like, oh, really? And that's who he has become. But hopefully that doesn't happen today. Alex, let me come to you because you've loved yourself some Austin Eckler this year. His rushing prop is 53.5, but we know he can do it all. And so his receiving prop is 37.5, and his combo prop is 94.5. Educate me on Austin Eckler.
Yeah, very interesting matchup against the Cardinals. They're actually pretty stout up front, and we've seen Eckler struggle running the football. His real strength is his versatility, his ability to run routes out of the backfield. To me, he's as good as any receiving running back in the NFL. Typically, when I look to take advantage of his matchups, it's in games with a potential high total and games where the opponent can really push the Chargers, force them to have to throw the ball more than they ordinarily do, or possibly play from behind. That's when you see those potential spike weeks for Eckler. So I actually think fading his rushing line, it opened at 55.5, is fairly sharp against this Cardinals front that is actually very good up front. I just don't think we're going to see a lot of volume and a lot of rushing attempts for Eckler. I do like his receiving prop. I'd lean over on it. Not a play for me just because I don't have enough confidence in this game environment being up tempo and basically the Cardinals getting out with a lead, forcing the Chargers to really play fast. So lean over on receiving. I actually like fading his rushing line though.
Okay, very, very good. And remember, the Chargers at 5-5, still alive in the playoff conversation. The Cardinals, however, not so much at 4-7. So the motivation is on the Chargers side. We've got to move on to the next game because we're getting very, very tight on time, gentlemen. Next game, a lot of interest in this one. Raiders and the Seahawks. Seahawks laying 4. Remember, they've been off since the Germany game against the Bucs. Total 47.5. And in Germany, remember, they really kind of hit their wall. They've been playing so well, but the Bucs defense and rushing really limited them until the fourth quarter. Here's where we stand as a show. Maestro is on Geno Smith over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Prop stars, you also like Geno Smith in a different prop. Talk to me.
Yeah, it's funny because Maestro, Sia, and I all have different Geno Smith overs in this game. I'm on his passing yards, over 255.5 passing yards. He's gone over in 5 of his last 8 games. He's only had 300 yard games this season. I think this is an awesome opportunity for his third. I'm also spreading some money on his alt lines as well. This is the worst secondary in the NFL. The Raiders are 32nd in EPA allowed per drop pack, 31st in drop pack success percentage, 27th in coverage grade, 32nd in DVO in defensive passing DVOA, and the Seahawks like to air the ball out a lot. This is a matchup they can really exploit, take advantage of. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, 2 very explosive options in the passing game. Geno Smith has been wonderful. The one strength of the Raiders defense too is their ability to generate pressure on the quarterback and generate it quickly. And Geno gets the ball out of his hands very, very fast as any quarterback in the NFL. So I really think this is a matchup where we're going to see a lot of passing volume from the Seahawks, really air the ball out. And if you look at the path of least resistance, it's something I always talk about. It is certainly through the air against this Raiders defense. So I expect an uptick in passing volume from Seattle. I just expect them to be very aggressive, throwing the ball a lot on first down. And if the Raiders are able to make this a competitive game and push the Seahawks, that's when we're looking at that potential 300-yard game from Geno Smith. So love me some Geno Smith over 255.5. I'd play it up to 263.
See it, go.
Yeah, I'll pile on the Geno Smith train, and I think I can keep this really short. Listen, Geno Smith, he's going to pile up some passing yards. I understand Kenneth Walker is dominant, and you can play him in DFS and be very comfortable with it. But at the end of the day, this is an explosive offense that has a ton of explosive plays, that's coming off a bye, that's playing a defense that allows a lot of explosive plays, and frankly, doesn't cover the receiver well at all. So to me, it's just a very good setup for a team and a quarterback that likes to take shots downfield. So give me Geno Smith's longest pass over 35.5 yards at -119.
I love when we have three different plays for the same player and they all could cash. We don't have to root against each other. That's awesome. I just need a name here, Alex. Any thoughts? It's from SC. Any thoughts on Jeff Wilson head-to-head against Kenneth Walker on rush yards today? Wilson is actually favored at -115.
Already played Jeff Wilson on that exact prop.
Boom. There you go, SC. I would suggest you play it too. All right, two more games, and I'm only lasting 2 minutes on each one, so it's got to be quick, guys. All right, Rams, Chiefs, -15.5. Yuck. Total 42. Yuck. We've already discussed in the chat AB on the team total, which is 28.5. The hook is a killer for this. Alex, start us off.
Yeah, one prop I just wanted to touch on, I will go very quickly, is this Rams team without Matt Stafford, without Cooper Kupp, they are going to run the football. They are going to run the football, whether they are up, whether they are down, and obviously they're probably going to be down in this game against the Chiefs. It won't matter. They're going to run the football without Stafford at quarterback. We saw that trailing 21 points, still running the football. I like Cam Akers in this game. It might be gross. You might have to hold your breath, but it's only 36.5 rushing yards. He's going to get 15 to 17 carries, regardless of game scripts, purely a volume play. Just wanted to give that play out real quickly.
And understand the Chiefs are going to play deep zone because the quarterback can't throw, and they're going to let all the rushing yards in the world happen in front of them.
The Rams also have a mobile quarterback that will help open up running lanes as well.
It's exactly what I was getting ready to say. Now, let me come to you, because this number, 15.5, this is a perfect spot for the Chiefs to win 27-3. But in the NFL, what do we always tell the people at home?
The juice is worth the squeeze?
No.
I know we always tell people
the really high spreads are very difficult to take. I'm saying at 15.5, even with a backup quarterback, it's very hard to take, is what I meant. Sorry.
No, I'm kind of just messing with you a little bit, because I understand what you were getting at, but I didn't know if there was like a cliche phrase that we always had for this. Listen,
thank you for the respect on that, though.
15.5 is a big number. The thing I question about taking the Rams on this side, though, is because Bryce Perkins is I think he's serviceable in terms of like a neutral game script guy, but in terms of coming back, and they're going to be in a negative game script the majority of this game, I think it's going to be really tough on him. He doesn't have his receivers. We know he doesn't have Kupp. He also doesn't have Allen Robinson, and he just doesn't have a good arm. Like, I've watched Bryce Perkins even at UVA. He just doesn't have an arm to, like, manufacture a late touchdown. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be able to put up 28, 35 points in this game. I just don't think it bodes well for the Rams putting up, more than 13 points in this game. So I actually like the Chiefs -15.5. I'm not betting it. It's not an official play, but if I had to bet it, I'd actually give the points up.
Yeah, I would lead in the same way. Jeffrey says, thoughts on the over-under. Jeffrey, the Chiefs are in a spot now as the number 1 seed. They just want to win the game. If they get up by 20, they will sit on the rock. They don't want to get anybody hurt. They've been having receivers knocked out with concussions and stuff. Do not play the over. Even if it comes in, do not play it today, because it could be very, very testy. Alex, 15 seconds.
Also, like Isaiah Pacheco in this matchup, no Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's going to be a two-man show with him and Jerick McKinnon in the backfield. We know McKinnon doesn't get a lot of that early first and second down work, so we should see a decent amount of volume from Pacheco.
Boom. And I'm going
I'm sorry, real quick. Pacheco's getting a little forgotten in DFS circles because of all the value with Jeff Wilson and Rachaad White and Latavius Murray. So I think he's a really smart play to pair with the Kansas City Chiefs defense, which of course a lot of people are playing in DFS.
And Andy Reid loves him. Absolutely loves him. All right, final game on the slate, guys. Saints 49ers. Niners looked fantastic last week. And so fantastic. I lost them, and I wasn't even upset about it. They could be the best team in the NFC right now, with all due respect to the Eagles. They're laying 9, the total 43. See ya. Start us off.
Yeah, I mean, they are the best team, in my opinion, for one. And I think they end up covering – yeah, I think they end up covering this number. Sorry, Alex. I think they're better than the Eagles. I think they end up covering this number. I think the Saints are really kind of on a downturn right now. I don't think they know what they're doing at quarterback, and the Andy Dalton experience hasn't gone exactly how they intended. And I think the 49ers defense starting to get healthier. The offense, it's kind of pick your poison. Do you want to defend Christian McCaffrey and Elijah, or do you want to try to defend the pass? Jimmy Garoppolo, as everybody's referred to him as sort of a point guard type, he is just the captain of the offense. He doesn't have to do much. And I think the 49ers are going to score plenty here. I don't think the Saints are. So I like the Niners in this one.
Jimmy G, 4 touchdown passes last week. Why did we get this face from you, Alex?
I'm sorry. I was just texting my beautiful wife telling her to remove both you from our Christmas card list after that blasphemous statement about the Eagles not being the best team in the NFC. Can't hear any more of that. That was just totally out of bounds.
Is that all you had? You have anything on this game?
I have, Coach.
No? Okay, that's all you have.
We'll keep it short and tight.
John says, hey, 6 minutes of stoppage time. We can all cash live together on Croatia, Coach. John, I like how you are thinking. It's a great way to start. Then all these props that we gave you, all these best bets that we gave you, they're going to cash too. So, AB, if you don't mind, there you go. Those are our best bets. I'm not going to run through them all. You guys can take a look if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, on Apple, I apologize. We just don't have time to list all of the plays that we have. But we're going to leave them up there. And you know that we like to end every single show asking my cappers, what's the most important thing you're looking for today? Use the information for today or maybe into the future. It all matters. It all matters. So, Sia, start us off. What are you looking forward to today?
Well, I'm looking forward to, believe it or not, watching all these backup quarterbacks play. We're going to have Mike White, Nathan Peterman, Kyle Allen, Sam Darnold, and Bryce Perkins all starting at quarterback. And granted, most of these guys are starting for bad teams, but I'm just curious to see how that plays out.
Proppy, I know your team's not playing until tonight, so I will mess with you a lot on Early Edge Live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time tonight. But for the here and the now, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm excited to see the Seattle Seahawks play. I think this is a good spot for them against the Vegas Raiders. I also think the Raiders can push Seattle a bit. This game has some sneaky shootout potential, 2 pretty explosive passing game options, passing attacks. So I think this is a good spot for Seattle to potentially put up 27, 28 plus points.
And finally, we will have 4 o'clock games today, 7 at 1. 4 at 4. Then, of course, Sunday Night Football tonight. We'll be back here live with me and the entire crew for the Packers and the Eagles. Man, you don't get a much better matchup. I know they're not. I know Packers aren't great, but it's a great matchup on Sunday night that we will be here for. And apparently, Croatia just scored again. 4-1. Let's take it, Scorpion 1507. Thank you all so very much. And thank you to all of you in the chat for just humming along through this entire show. We can't do this without you. And now it's my favorite time of the day. I get to go watch the game and cash all the tickets with you. So with that being said, you know what time it is. There's only one thing left to do. And I believe you all know what that is. You've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these NFL tickets straight to the pay window. For my entire crew, love them all. Prop stars, C in the shot, AB on the ones and the twos and in the chat. And of course, tip of the cap to our man, the guru, for cashing Croatia today. It doesn't matter which football you're talking about. We got you covered every single time right here at the Early Edge. Good luck.